All right, we got 28. We're supposed to have 38, 38 students. I'm going to get started. The first thing I want to do is I want to introduce Kim. Kim Lamb is the SI, supplemental instructor for this class. Kind of like a combination, kind of like a TA, not really. Supplemental instruction I'll talk about in a little bit when we go through the syllabus. So let me, I'm Professor McCullum. Normally I would tell you email and office and all that kind of stuff. I'll talk about this stuff. I'll go through the syllabus. I'm assuming, you know, most everybody's a freshman, maybe a first-time freshman, right? How many people are first-time freshmen? A lot, right? So there's a lot of stuff that's new and not, you know, not just because we're doing this over Zoom instead of in person, right? There's a lot of stuff that's new because you haven't been to university classes before, and there's a lot of things you just don't know. So we'll talk about those things too. So let me throw up the syllabus. Hopefully this works. The thing that really bugs me about Zoom is every time you share something, it totally rearranges your view. So every time I share something, I have to renormalize everything because I want to be able to see people. So here's the syllabus, right? You should be able to find this on Canvas. I'll pop up Canvas and everything just in case people haven't seen that too. Because like I said, that's new. So syllabus, course description, catalog description, we have to put all this stuff in there, even though hopefully you know the course and why you're taking it in the course description and so on. Here's my information, WebEx office hours, right? So we'll have a regularly scheduled office hour over WebEx that you can always find on the Canvas page. So Canvas is going to be the central clearinghouse for information. 9 times, hopefully at least 9 times out of 10, you will just be able to find stuff there. Maybe the 10th time it's there, but you're not quite sure where I put it, right? Which happens sometimes, and we'll help you find it. My email address is there. If this says WebEx office hours, I'm actually going to use Zoom as a primary and WebEx as a backup. I changed that kind of at the last minute. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to fix this on the syllabus. I just noticed I want it to be accurate, and I'll upload it. But of course, yesterday, after I decided that, Zoom went belly up for everybody. And so that might happen. But you know, it might happen that Zoom is down, right? So then you can be able to go to WebEx. And I believe that the WebEx tab in Canvas also has all the meeting times scheduled. But in general, don't use the WebEx ones. I don't know. Hopefully there's not people going to WebEx. Maybe I should take a second and while I'm talking and make sure that nobody's sitting in WebEx right now, right? So Zoom is primary, WebEx is going to be secondary. Maybe I didn't print this out again after I changed it. I'll make sure that it's consistent. So the big thing about this course is that we're flipping the classroom, right? Some of you might have had experience of this in high school or whatever. The skinny of that is we're posting the lectures online. I'm doing 1/3 of the lectures, and Dr. Zhao is doing 1/3 of the lectures, and Dr. Sharai is doing 1/3 of the lectures. And we're using very similar format. And the idea is that we want you to watch the lectures. You can stop and start them. You should still probably be taking notes, right? and so on when you're looking at the lectures, writing down questions you have, and so on. But we felt that during our meeting times on Zoom, we would like to be a little bit more active, do some discussions, do some problem solving, and thought that was a better way to spend our time together on Zoom. So that's what we're gonna do. So that's the basic structure of the class. Laboratory is also online. The laboratory, there's also a Canvas site for your laboratory section, and the laboratory syllabus has also been posted on Canvas under files. So hopefully by now you've had a look at that. If you haven't, you should look at it. Labs will start next week, right? Even during a regular in-person semester, this is the normal way that we do that, is we typically start labs the week after the regular semester, the regular lecture classes start. Okay. Text, hopefully you'll be able to see this. This is the text. This is like the old-fashioned kind of text, you know, the book. You can get it PDF and so on too. So you should have that. You should also be reading your textbook, right? I have kids at university, and sometimes it's hard to get them to read their textbooks that I spend my hard-earned money on too. I know they're really expensive, but you should be reading that too. That should be a primary source of information for you. There's a laboratory book, but I don't know exactly how Dr. Shui is handling that. Okay, there's also Chem 101. So Chem 101 is the homework, and we kind of like Chem 101. It's not all sections of this class are using Chem 101. Dr. Stara is actually using a homework called OWL, and they're both good, and we're just going to try to compare and contrast how they work. So let me now, I'm going to do a different share so you can see what this looks like in case you haven't seen it already. This is what Chem 101 looks like for me. And hold on, I gotta move this stuff out of the way. And there's a student view, but I can't remember how to get to it. Anyway, you'll have your homework here, and it's due pretty much weekly, right? And you just work through it. And a lot of the things that Chem 101 does, we like some of the way that both kind of mechanically and the questions work, and it should really help you. So Chem 101 generally, it's difficult to get 100% or even a high score in Chem 101. But that's not really the goal. The goal is to do it and practice as much as possible. So we don't really penalize low scores, both because the points for that are smaller, and also in my case, I usually kind of bump up that score a little bit. So in past semesters, the Chem 101, a good score in Chem 101 is like 80%, right? And so I usually bump that up to a 90 or 95 to scale the score. So you shouldn't feel like if you keep practicing the problems and maybe get some wrong, that it's going to count against you. And the points are not very much anyway to de-emphasize the points, but I want you to take them. If anybody has any questions, feel free to unmute and throw out a question. That's fine.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So is the homework on Chem 101 that's graded for accuracy, right?
Yeah, it is. And you get feedback, and it shows you, it gives you hints and stuff like that, right? So it's an active kind of homework where, you know, it kind of helps you along. And especially when we get into things like dimensional analysis, you know, that's using units to help you solve chemistry problems. It has a pretty good way of doing that, where you can like put pieces together in a grid. It's kind of hard to explain until you see it, but it's a pretty good system.
Okay.
So we like it, and you can do it on your phone. It doesn't matter. You download the app for your iPad or your phone or whatever, so you can do it wherever you want. The critical thing, I guess, is when you get there there's this course code. So you can see this course code here, 7GTR4C. That's unique to this course, and when you sign up for this, you enter that course code and you're automatically connected to this class, right? And I believe it's $30, right? And that's considered like a required textbook kind of thing. Are there any other questions about Chem 101? One of the things, we'll talk about this a little bit more when I get to it, but one of the things that Kim will help you with is Chem 101. So amongst the many different, let's say, techniques or things that Kim is going to work with you on, Chem 101 is one of the possible things that she can help you with. Okay, so let me go back to my iPad if I can see it. Oh, I see more questions. Kits in the mail. Manuel, when you say kits, what kind of kits do you mean?
I heard from Miss Lonston that we would be getting kits for chemistry. Is that not accurate?
Who did you hear that from?
Lisa Johnston.
Lisa John. Oh, no, I don't think that's. At one point we were thinking about using kits, but it presents all kinds of problems. And it turns out, we found out in the spring, when all this started happening and people started trying different things, is that the manufacturers are really good at promoting their kits and selling them, but when it came to actually delivering them, they had a lot of problems because the demand, I think, was a lot higher, or they just overpromised, and we didn't really think that was very reliable. So we actually spent all summer with our graduate students doing some virtual labs, putting them together and doing them ourselves, because this is really the only way we could feel like we were going to do it the right way, or a way that we were satisfied with. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, there's no kits or anything to worry about. Let's see. And Selah says, on Follett, I checked for the required materials, and the only book they said I needed was the lab manual, which I have, but on the syllabus it says I need the intro chem and related. You should buy the textbook. You should most definitely buy the textbook, right? The textbook, which is Zumdahl, I think we're on the 9th edition now. I have an 8th edition, but we're on the 9th edition. Should be your primary, your primary source of reading, because the lectures are good and we'll go over all the material, and it's the way that I or Dr. Zhao or Dr. Starr is going to present the material. But the textbook is your reference. You can always go to and find what you need, right? So you should definitely be reading that. So what I often tell students for the textbook is to read it kind of, not like you're going to burn a hole through the page with your eyes, but read it medium level once through, and then do the lecture, take some notes, and then start doing some problems, some homework problems or whatever. And then if there's specific things you need help with, you can go back to the book and try to see how the book explains it, or how the book does it. There should be a lot of back and forth with that. So yeah, I'll try to keep up with the chat questions too. So if I don't, give a holler. Okay, so here's the second page. This is really the page that tries to explain everything, and we realize this is a little bit complicated to read the first time through, so that's one of the reasons we're going to go through it. Basically, let's start with what we would call the minimum requirement for passing this class. 60%, right? So 60% is considered the minimum passing grade for this class. And we also have lab and lecture, right? So you have to get 60% in both lab and lecture. So getting a 55 in one and a 65 in another is an F, right? So you need to get at least 60% in both lab and lecture, and at least 60% overall. And during a regular semester, when we have regular lab courses, that makes a lot more sense than when we're doing virtual stuff. But hopefully, and I think that kind of breakdown is repeated throughout this department. So when you go on to general chemistry or organic chemistry or whatever, you'll kind of see this same kind of breakdown. And attendance in these Zoom sessions and participation also has to be at least 60%. All right. So what that means is that if you know there's two of these meetings a week, I don't really want to call them lectures because they're not exactly just lectures. It's not like I'm just going to sit back and like recite things like in the videos, right? So it's not exactly a lecture. So that's why I'm calling them meetings. 2 meetings a week for 15 weeks is 30 meetings. 60% of that is 18. So technically all you got to do is come to 18 of these. But you know, ideally you would come to all of them because they're going to be useful and get you to learn the material. So we'll keep track of them, both, you know, who's here during the class, and we have other things to do too. So we have Poll Everywhere. We use Poll Everywhere. I'm going to talk about that in a few minutes so you can sign up for that, and we'll test that out today too. That's free, and you can use it a bunch of different ways. And there's gonna be discussions on Canvas, right? So each week you're gonna have to put your thought ups for some question that I ask, and also kind of give comments or review your fellow students too. I think maybe a lot of you have done that kind of thing before, but when you get to the discussion, it'll become obvious when you see it. We'll have Poll Everywhere competitions, right? So once a week, we'll have a Poll Everywhere competition. It's kind of like a speed competition, and you get bonus points for winning those, right, at the end of the semester, right? And that's just really more for fun. If you're a competitive person, that's great. If you're not very competitive, then it's not, you know, it's not a deal breaker or whatever. Michael, I see your question. I'll answer it in just a second. And that brings us to participation. So participation in synchronous activities, that means the stuff that's live, right? So we'll have online discussion and Poll Everywhere, and all that kind of stuff is 7.5% of your grade. So all the little points that go into there, they add up to 7.5 in grade, and they're spelled out here. 2 points for the discussions each, and there's 15 weeks of those, right? So that's 30 points. Poll Everywhere competitions are 15 points, and practice exams, which I'll talk about in a second, those are worth 2 points each. Homework I talked about a little bit. Quizzes, there'll be an online quiz every week, all right, on Canvas, timed, something like a half an hour, go through and do it. Each week, at the end of the week, you do it on your own time at home, basically at home, but we do have an honor code here of Pacific, so working with somebody else or collaborating on these is considered an honor code violation, so don't do it, please. There are 4 exams, which will also be administered through Canvas. Okay, same disclaimer on the honor code there. Each of these midterms are 87.5 points each. The reason that it's not quite 100 points is just so I can give you 1,000 points total, and it's easier to figure out, you know, what fraction of a point, what a point means overall in your overall grade that way. So that's why they're 87.5 points each. The final's worth 150 points. It'll be the same kind of thing. It'll be scheduled during the final exam time. The way exams will work is that you will have a specific time window to take them with a limited amount of time to complete them. So it might be you have a 3-hour time window and an hour or 70 minutes or whatever to take the test, right? So the time window is going to be limited too. So you have to plan a little bit. I realize a lot of you are not even in the Pacific time zone. I'm sorry, not even in, might be in a different time zone in the US, much less a different country. I know a number of our students are overseas even still, right? So that just means you have to plan ahead a little bit for the timing. So let me answer this question. Michael asked a question. Is it okay if we have the 7th edition of the book, or do we need the 8th or 9th? Well, look, I got to tell you that it doesn't matter a whole lot, right? Zumdahl, in fact, I have a 1st edition of this book somewhere. And if I showed it to you, you would recognize it, right? You would recognize the illustrations. So what the main thing that Zumdahl does in his books when he makes a new edition is he shuffles the problems around or moves the problems, especially since our homework is not taken from this textbook directly. Then if you get an earlier edition, it's not gonna harm many things, right? So I don't believe, especially between 7th, 8th, and 9th, there's a whole lot of difference in the text. You know, you would be hard pressed to find the difference. So that was a very long answer to a kind of a simple question. Any other questions coming up? So let's talk about the practice exams. So the practice exams, let me bring one of these up. So here's what a practice exam looks like. And each practice exam, there's the same number of practice exams as there are regular exams. And the practice exams are broken up basically into 2-page chunks. So every 2 pages is a week, if that makes sense. So this is just a sample. This is the first page of the one that's out there, the first one that's out there. So the first 2 pages will be chapter 2, right? The second 2 pages will be chapter 3. So what you do is you download this, print it out, work on it, and then you send me back the 2 pages for that week, right? So every week you send me 2 pages from the practice exam, you work it out, and you just get points for sending it back to me, right? And as long as you don't send me back a blank page, as long as it's substantially filled out, then you get the points. Now you don't get this corrected, but this is one of the things that Kim will be going over in SI sessions, right? So this is another way to kind of get feedback with your peers, and however exactly Kim is going to do that. Okay, so that's the way this week. So this week you see a lot of kind of math and not dimensional analysis, math and significant figures kind of stuff, because that's the first topics that we're going to be going over. Right? Is there any questions about that? So if we go down, practice exams, 2 points each. I think this is mentioned a couple different places. 2 points each. And here we go. 2 points each for 30 points. So it's mentioned in a couple different places, right? And the syllabus also has a due date schedule, right? Which I'll get to. Hold on here. Okay. Laboratory is 20%, right? Your grades and so on will be maintained on a separate laboratory Canvas site. All I do for that is I import that as a percentage, as a point, right? And I assign that weight of 20% for the course. Extra credit, Poll Everywhere, right? So if you're one of the top 10 finishers in Poll Everywhere, you get a couple extra credit points. Sometimes that motivates people, sometimes it doesn't. All right, so any questions so far on that page? That page really explains the mechanics of how everything works. And like, for me, it's very complicated, right? Because in the past, I didn't have all these points here and there added in. But I think especially once we get past the first week, the flow and everything will make a lot of sense to you. Right. Okay. So breakdown of points. Grading scale, I have a straight scale in this course, right? So at any time, you know what your grade is. You don't have to worry about what other people are doing, right? Supplemental instruction. So here's a little section on this. There's a link that you can go to if you want to kind of understand the theory of it. But one of the things about supplemental instruction is that professors have found out over the years is that sometimes students don't ask questions of professors because it's intimidating or it's hard to come to office hours or whatever. And lots of times somebody up here is much more effective at teaching you. And we do this a lot of different ways at Pacific, and supplemental instruction is one of them. So, so I'll work with Kim, and we actually have an SI leader, right? We have a student who's done SI a couple times, and he will also keep referring to Kim as Ken because Dr. Zhao's name is Ken. So it's hard for me to separate them, especially in a classroom environment. Did I freeze up?
I think you're freezing up a little bit. You're crackling.
Yeah, I noticed everybody else stopped moving. Let me see where I'm at here. If that happens again, I'll switch. How is it now? Is it no better?
It's good.
It's okay now? I can't tell because I can't tell if people are just like, if you're not moving because you're bored to death, or if you're not moving because the screen's frozen, or something worse, right? It might be something worse. Anyway, that's one of the reasons I like the video on. We'll get to that in just a second. Anyway, there's the blurb on supplemental instruction and Chem 101, the details about Chem 101. So let's talk about expectations here in video. I really want your camera on, right? The reason I want your camera on is because it gives me more of a sense of feedback, and we can just get to see each other, right? It's gonna be really hard to make connections this semester when we're all remote. And in class, we're gonna do different things to do that. And I'm gonna be talking about a lot of the activities on campus that you can go into. Like there's a Black Lives Matter concert this Friday at 5, right? And I put that on my calendar because I missed the last one. I really want to see that. And so you can do all these things to kind of build a sense of community because we're not in the same place, we're not in the same room, so it's really hard. So we're going to try really hard to build those things. If you have issues with being on video for whatever reason, I mean, that's going to happen. That's going to be a problem for some people, or there's going to be things that you're worried about. Talk to me about it. Just talk to me about it, okay? And we'll work it out. It's not like I'm going to keep track of everybody's who's not on video and start taking points away, but I do, you know, that's really the way I want to, I prefer to have things. Okay, any questions about that? Here's another question. How would you like the practice exam sent to you? The way the practice exams get submitted is through Canvas online, and it needs to be a PDF. All right. So you should probably practice a little bit. If you have a printer that has a scanner, like I do, then that's great. You can scan it into a PDF and upload it that way. But not everybody has that, right? If you have, I know, like on iPhones, if you you can use the notes function to turn a picture into a PDF, right? So so you can do that. And you know what I ask if you do that right? So let's talk about this a little bit, because even my junior level students have an issue with this sometimes. Hold on a second. Can you still see my iPad? Am I just not?
Yeah, we can see it.
You can see it? Okay, it's not showing up where I expect. Hold on. Here it is. Is that it? So if you're going to take a picture of something, then come on. Then take a second, right? Spend at least, 2 seconds to take a good picture and center it, right? If that's the way you have to do it, I understand. But try just to take a second and do a good job on the picture, right? Don't be like maybe I should do a wall of shame with some of the documents I've gotten in my PChem class, right? Students who've been at university now for 3 years and should know better. Okay, so here's the calendar. So let's go over this a little bit and explain it. So the way this works is it's organized according to chapters, right? It's organized according to chapters. And then the Tuesday of each week, we want you to have watched the video, the lecture video, at least once, right? You might have to watch it twice, that's okay. And then the Thursday of each week, the pracs exam is going to be due that week. Chapter discussion, we're going to have it lecture 3 o'clock, right? So basically on the Thursday of each week, we're going to discuss the chapter, doing problems and some polls and some other, and then there'll be a poll everywhere competition at the end of class, right? The last few minutes of class, we'll wrap things up with some polling and some other stuff, okay? And then the Chem 101, the homework is due the following Tuesday, right? So you see this Tuesday matches this Tuesday. So the homework for that week is due the beginning of the next week. Give you a chance to practice and work out any issues that you had, right? And then there's a Canvas quiz also. And I have to double check this. I might have made the Canvas quizzes Friday, although I think I stuck to the schedule. Anyway, each week's quiz is due basically at the end of the week to kind of wrap things up. So the idea here is we kind of keep things moving and keep you working on stuff throughout the week. And then at the end of each week, we kind of cap things off. And by the time you take the quiz and get that score, you should have a pretty good idea how that material is working with you. Does that make sense? The only other thing you might notice on this is down here, let's see. Down here it says course review December ? That's because we're not quite sure when that's gonna fit in. Okay, but that's the course schedule. Any questions on the schedule? Okay. The last page is kind of stuff that's in every syllabus. Pretty much this should be in every syllabus on campus. Some information about accommodation for disabilities. So there's some contacts there, right? A web address that if you need to inquire about that. The honor code. And there's kind of like a disclaimer at the bottom about assessment. So we do lots of recordings now in Zoom, right? So today we're recording this. I'll post it on the Canvas site when we're done, just for completeness. And so you can review it in case you want to, in case you missed a class, you can pick it up. But so then you need to know that you're being recorded. But that also means that we have to be compliant. So for example, you guys are all on video, and so really the only people that have access to the video are people in the class. So the only people who have access to the video are on the video, pretty much, right? So that's how we comply with that. And so there's a couple different ways I can post the videos. The most reliable way is through YouTube, but when I do it through YouTube, I don't have the video listed, right? So nobody can find the video unless they get into Canvas and go that way, right? You can't go on my YouTube and find the video unless you're some sort of like YouTube sorcerer, and I'm sure there are some people like that out there. But if you have any concerns about that, you'd let me know. Okay, does anybody have any questions right now? Okay, I have to. All right. So I guess there's one other thing I can show you if this is going to let me. There we go. This is actually posted on Canvas too. This is how to sign up for Chem 101. Right, it goes through the steps of what you have to do. Probably a lot more pedantic than you need for this. Okay. One thing I would like to do now, come on. Is go to Poll Everywhere and set that up. So Poll Everywhere, what I can do, maybe I just share my screen, it might be easier. So Poll Everywhere, since you can see my screen, you see all the participants and all this other stuff. So for Poll Everywhere, all you have to do is go to polleverywhere.com, sign up. There's an app, right? You can get it for your phone. You can get it right now if you wanted to. And this is my Poll Everywhere code, right? It's C Michael. It's not my full name or whatever. CMICHAELMCCA 824. So that's like in Chem 101. That's the unique identifier for the class. And usually the way I'm going to run Poll Everywhere is I'm just going to share my screen like this, right? So I don't know how many of you have Poll Everywhere going, right? Does anybody already have that going? I don't know if I had my code up there or you could search for it. Does anybody have it going? Raise your hand if you have it going. No, okay. I guess that's not too surprising, but you can try it. So most of the time I'm just going to run it from here. I just have to activate it like this, and then you can respond. You do not have to do this through Zoom, right? You can go through the app. Let's see. I'm supposed to be able to do this. Oh, there we go. Somebody did it. All right. And the good thing about Poll Everywhere is that you don't have to, like I said, you don't have to do it through Zoom. You can just do it on your phone during class and so on. So, and once I have some information here, the thing you have to be careful of is when you register, you have to use your u.pacific.edu address, okay? Use your u.pacific.edu address to register for this. And then you find my presenter ID, And that way I'll be able to identify you with your Pacific ID, and that's the way you're going to get proper credit, right? And what I'll do, right, is if we download this data and the test information, this, like, say, test poll information, if I see any name on there I don't recognize, or it's you know, like a screen name like Honeybun846 or whatever, you know, have to make sure that we have real names so we can identify you. This is kind of a question. I wasn't quite sure what to do with this question, but there's a lot going on right now, right? I mean, are you ready for 2020 to be over? I am. Something always keeps getting thrown at us, right? But here's some of the things that have been happening lately, some good and some bad, that have to do with chemistry, right? The sky appears brown and the sunlight has a red cast. Well, that's kind of something we study in chemistry called light scattering. And the interesting thing about this, the smoke's not so bad today here in Stockton. And if you're not in the area, then you don't have to worry about this at all. But last Thursday, the smoke was really bad. I mean, the AQI, the air quality index, was about 250. And if it's 75, it's considered unhealthy. So if it's greater than 75, you're not even supposed to be outside. And it was 250. That turns out to be, units are important in chemistry. So let me see what the units are. I have this app open all the time because I don't like my dogs to be outside. It is micrograms per cubic meter of this particular size particle, right? Anyway, when the smoke's really bad and the sun looks red, first of all, you still shouldn't look at the sun, because it turns out that the smoke is covering up the sun enough that you can look at it, but all the harmful UV rays are still coming through, and you can be blinded just as effectively as if there wasn't any smoke. So be very careful looking at the sun through smoke. The other thing you can do, and the best way to do this, is actually face away from the sun. You face away from the sun and you can feel how hot the sun is on the back of your neck, because the back of your neck is actually a pretty sensitive area, right? And if you turn away so the sun is coming down on the back of your neck, it feels unusually hot, right? It's dark because the smoke is blocking the sun, but you can really feel the heat from the sun. And so this is an example of different wavelengths of light being scattered differently by the smoke. COVID-19, of course, is a very big thing right now, and they're working on saliva tests for COVID-19 that right now the most reliable tests for COVID-19 are about $100 to do a COVID test. So this is pretty expensive, right? But they're working on a saliva test that would bring that cost down under $10, closer to $1 a test, right? Which is amazing, because it means you can basically test anybody anytime. If it's $100, you really have to think about spending that money, right? At least if you're somebody who is paying for it. But if you have a $1 test, it's basically easy to test everybody, which has been a big problem for us, right? I'm just trying to, like I said, I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do with this slide, but these are some of the things that are very interesting to me right now that have to do with chemistry. Windmills out here in the various windy passes along Highway 12. If you ever go from Stockton to Napa, there's a lot of windmills. Windmills turn wind energy into electricity, right? But what they're working on now is they're working on using that electricity to electrolyze the greenhouse gases, most notably CO2, into fuels like methanol, right? Because that takes energy to turn CO2 into methanol. But if you use the electricity from the windmill to zap CO2 and methanol on site, and then you collect methanol, and then you run your car on methanol, and then the CO2 that's produced from that. So the idea is you're making a cycle, right? And they're testing this now. This is pretty cool. Solar arrays are pretty big. And you know, I decided that solar is more physics than chemistry. It's physical chemistry, and I'm a physical chemist, so I think it's pretty cool. But I decided that solar panels itself was more physics. So I'm letting physics have that. But one of the things that's making solar power very much more useful and available are storage batteries, right? Because in California, I don't know if you know how solar works in California. If you or your family has solar, you probably know this very well. But I have a solar array, and what it does is it goes back to the grid, or it offsets my use. But if there's a power outage and the sun's shining, I still don't have any electricity, right? Because I have to still get my electricity from PG&E, and all my solar does is offset that. In California, you're not allowed to put that directly into your house unless you have a battery, right? So if you have a battery wall or a big storage battery that you store the power from your solar panels, then when the power goes out, you still have power, right? And if you can store your own power, then you become much more efficient. You don't have to, you can sell it back at the best time or not sell it back at all, right? So batteries are very important, and battery technology the past few years is really taken some leaps and bounds. But solar technology, it turns out the past few years has really gone like this, and battery technology has gone like this. So battery technology has not kept up with solar. The cost of solar panels is really, really, really cheap now compared to what it was even 5 years ago. But batteries, the capacity of batteries and the efficiency hasn't really increased. So I tell my students every year that if you want to get rich and save the world, work on batteries. You can really honestly save the world. Solar panels and wind are half of it, but you need to be able to store this. Batteries now are cheap enough though that a lot of utilities are putting up battery farms, just like they put up solar farms, where they're just storing power in batteries, which 5 years ago you wouldn't even think of doing. And it's still expensive, but it's not as expensive as it used to be. Last one, some face masks are more effective than others in blocking COVID-19 transmission. This is actually pretty well known, but the answer is not obvious, because one of the things that I hear all the time when people say about masks aren't effective is people are just smart enough to get themselves into trouble, right? So let me go back to my iPad here. Okay, there we go. So here's my iPad. So you've probably seen a picture of what COVID-19 looks like, right? It's kind of interesting looking, but I'm just going to draw it as a sphere, right? So if this is a COVID-19 particle, right? These are actually kind of big. And one of the things people say when they're arguing about masks is that a mask pore, you know, the diameter of the holes in a mask might be this big, right? And so people say, oh, well, like I said, people are just smart enough to get themselves in trouble. So people learn the size of a COVID-19 and they learn the size of a mask pore, and they say, oh, the COVID-19 is smaller than the pore, so it doesn't do anything, right? Does anybody know what most people forget about this and why masks are actually super, super effective? First of all, let's imagine that the COVID-19 particle is outgoing, not incoming. What do I mean by that? I mean that I'm breathing, I have COVID-19. So if you imagine that I have COVID-19 and I'm wearing a mask and I'm breathing, then I'm wearing a mask so you don't get it, right? All right. So where does that COVID-19 come from in my body? Comes from your lungs, right? What else? What else? When you breathe out, do you know what the products of respiration are? Normally are CO2, right? CO2. And what else? Does anybody know what else is produced under respiration or combustion?
Water.
Water. Water. Okay. So there's a lot of water here. So it turns out that this COVID particle is carried by a water droplet, right? And so this is called an aerosol. Aerosol. So it turns out that the COVID-19 particles are never just floating around by themselves. One of the reasons that they do kind of carry so far in the air is that they're an aerosol, and aerosols travel very efficiently through the air, like smoke, right? Smoke is also kind of a complicated thing. So it turns out that you're not worried about the size of the COVID-19 particle. You're worried about the typical size of a water droplet that a human being exhales, right? And that's what these masks are designed to block for years, even before anybody thought about COVID-19. So this is kind of a combination of chemistry and physics and other things, right? That's kind of interesting. And one of the things that we really hope, one of the things that we really hope here at Pacific is that even if all you do, if all the science you've ever have at college is this class, that you learn enough about how to think about science, that you can think about things critically and be informed and help other people figure things out too, because there's not a lot of people in the world who actually have a good grasp of science. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? I'll keep asking that occasionally. Okay, the last thing I want to say before I take a break, typically, if this was a normal lecture, I would talk for about 45 minutes, 45, 50 minutes, take a break, and then finish the time. And I'm going to kind of follow that here too. But I think probably I'm going to talk for a little while longer and then we'll be done for today, unless anybody has any questions. But the last thing I want to talk about before I take a short break is office hours. This is one of the things that I find when students start university, they don't have a very good idea about it, because you don't have office hours at high school, right? Office hours are basically just a time for you to get together with your professor. And let me describe it in terms of a normal semester, because one day we will be back on campus together and have a normal semester. And you may have to explain this to your new friend who's an incoming freshman when you're a sophomore. We just schedule time in our office, at least an hour a week for every class, right? For each class, that we set aside for students of that class to come by if you have questions, right? It could be a question about, hey, I don't understand why I got this wrong in the test. Can you explain it to me? It could be, I didn't understand something that you said in lecture today. Can we talk about it? It could be this homework problem that you're having a lot of trouble with. But it's just a time that we set aside to meet with students. And especially at Pacific, when I have my office hours, say for Chem 23, I might be working on something, you know, while I'm waiting for students or seeing if a student comes by. But if you come by and have a question, then that's time that's set aside. So you don't have to feel bad about interrupting me, or you don't have to feel like self-conscious or whatever. We just try to be accessible. And a lot of places, when I was a graduate student in Berkeley, the professors had office hours too. They had 1 hour a week too, set aside for their students. But the difference is their lectures were like 400 students. So, you know, it looked like the line for COVID-19 testing to go to office hours. and sometimes you just never really saw the professor because you never got a chance to meet with them. So that's the basic idea behind office hours. And one of the unfortunate things about not being in person on campus is you don't get a chance to come by and see me personally your first semester. And a lot of times if students don't do it in their first semester, it's very hard for them to start visiting their professors. But that's what we have office hour for. So we have Zoom office hours. So I'm always going to be there during Zoom office hours. If I'm not, it's because maybe I fell asleep or I totally forgot because I'm playing with my dogs or something. But then that's the time where you like remind me or shoot me an email. But I'll try really hard to be there. It's on my schedule. And once it's on the schedule, it's a lot easier to keep. And you can ask anything. It doesn't even have to be about the class. You might have a question about the chemistry major, or you might have a question about something that's going on at Pacific or so on. All right, does that make sense? Okay, so what I'm gonna do right now, I'm gonna take a 5-minute break so I can get something to drink. And so I can use the little professor's room. And I'll be back. If you have any questions, I think what we're gonna do when we come back is we're gonna try a breakout room for a few minutes to get to know each other a little bit, okay? I'll be back in just a couple minutes. Booby balooby. Okay, I'm back. But I'm gonna do a couple kind of housekeeping things. One of the, it is hard right at the beginning of class to figure things out. So I want to talk about that a little bit. Let me look at this list here. I noticed when during the break, I checked my email and a couple of students are having some issues. So I want to try to accommodate that. And this is another reason why we're not doing anything heavy duty. Okay, I see Kalina. So one of the things that's a little weird about scheduling these Zoom meetings is that it's possible to join a Zoom meeting that I have scheduled on for September 15th, right? Because in Canvas, there's a long list of all the upcoming meetings because it's convenient for me to schedule them all at once. So you could go to one on September 15th and join that meeting, even though it hasn't started yet. So it takes a little while to get used to it. So that's why I have them labeled for each day, a lecture. Like I said, lecture is not exactly the right word, right? But it's a lecture and then also office hours. So you can see the office hour, I didn't mention the time, I guess. The time I have picked for the scheduled office hour is Tuesday, 10 to 11 in the morning. Now, maybe that time is not convenient for you. If that time is not convenient for you, you can always email me and we can meet a different time. It could be a regular time or it could be just a time that's convenient that week. If you do request a regular time, it may be that I kind of advertise that time so other people can take advantage of it too. And that's not to take away from your own time, but it's just to try to be more efficient. If there is something, if you're talking about a specific grade or something else that's going on that you're just more comfortable talking about privately, then just schedule, just email me or schedule a private time with me and we can talk about it. Okay. Okay. So let's see. More. Okay.
Professor McCollum?
Yeah.
I have a question. So for like my other courses that I'm taking, I could like on Canvas, I'm able to like go and look at like the lectures. They're like usually in like a module tab and I'm able to click it and like go onto the PowerPoint and download it and watch it.
Yeah.
So for your Canvas, I don't seem to find a module tab to where I can click it and see like the PowerPoint, or do you do it in like a different manner?
Yeah, actually, I'll tell you, I haven't used modules in my classes before, and Dr. Zhao and Dr. Ashtarai and I have been working together on our coursework, obviously, to make it more organized for the students and everything. And one of the, I have to tell you, one of the, at first last week, I said, because I noticed that Dr. Zhao had modules. I said, oh, modules, that looks like a good idea. I think I'm going to have to do that. I haven't done it before, but I think I'm going to do that. And I hadn't done it yet. And then Dr. Starr, I said, oh, I don't think I'm going to do that. And I said, well, maybe I won't. And I kind of went back and forth. I ended up not doing it. And then Dr. Starr said, oh, I did modules.
Yeah.
So I think probably, I mean, it's probably better for you all if I do it in a modular form. So I think what I'm going to do is the next couple of days, I'm going to try to set it up that way. If it's easier for you to find things in modules, right?
Yeah.
So I will work on that. So let me show you. You can see my browser, right?
Yeah.
So basically the way I have it set up now is for our page. We have this thing called Media Site that's supposed to make it easy to share video and stuff. It ends up half the time it's very, very wonky. So the way I have it set up is on pages. So if you look at these pages, then here's the lecture videos. So far we have chapter 1 and 2, chapter 3, which I did, chapter 4 and chapter 5 finished. So we have about a third of the chapter videos posted.
Oh, okay. I see.
Right. So right now they're on pages.
Okay.
But I will, like you said, I think modules probably make it a little bit easier to find everything, right?
Yeah.
So I just have to
it,
make
It
sure.
really doesn't. I mean, it's not really. It doesn't really matter. I mean, as long as it's easy access. I mean,
Yeah.
this is pretty
But I
easy
think I'll
access.
do modules. I just
Okay.
need to make sure that when I set them up, I don't set them up and my computer explodes. Right? I need to make sure that it's set up properly and not a mess for you. So we can go through this, right? You can, the grades, of course, is a spreadsheet.
Uh-huh.
And there's going to, I kind of think there's going to be so much on here that the grade spreadsheet's not super useful. But right now, there's assignments, and the assignments tab is useful to kind of show the breakdown structure,
Mhm.
right? Like but you can see there's a lot of stuff here that I have kind of skeletoned out, but I haven't filled into details yet. And there's all the quizzes and so on.
Mhm.
And you guys are on my screen are seeing the published stuff as well as the unpublished stuff. That's one of my dogs, if you can hear him. And then there's files, and so on. But you're right, it is a little bit like if I were the king of Canvas and designed this the way that made sense to me, it wouldn't, announcements and pages would be the same thing, right?
Mhm.
And they're not. And it turns out that it's easier to put video and outside links on pages,
Mhm.
but they end up being like announcements. So it's just, so I think the modules will work pretty well. So I will work on that. It might take me a few days, but for now, as long as you can find them.
And my second question is, when we're doing because there is a practice exam that's due
Mhm.
on the 27th.
Yeah.
How do we send this to you on Canvas?
Yeah, what you do is you go to the assignment, and
Uh-huh.
there'll be an upload button.
Oh,
Right?
I see it.
So
Okay.
you just upload it,
Okay.
and the file type is restricted to PDF.
Okay.
And but it's dumb, right? So I mean, you could, if you were really a bad person, you could make an executable and put a PDF on the end and upload it, and it would work. But maybe there's some checking. But anyway, try it. And of course, you have any problems with that, I expect there to be problems. There's always problems that come out, and just let me know.
All right. Cool.
Often, even in my advanced classes, often I end up having people email me stuff before the deadline because for whatever reason they're having trouble. And then what'll happen is, like I said, for the practice tests, I'm just going to check to make sure that you did something on them, right? So you're going to get the points for doing them. But that will be one of the things that Kim might use in her SI sessions to help you, right? And I'm not sure now that I mentioned that I was 100% clear about the SI sessions. The SI sessions will be more on Tuesdays, right? So for the most part, Kim will be running the Tuesday sessions on SI, and I'll be there I'll be there sometimes, but I'll be there maybe to help, and because I don't want to, you know, I don't want to feel like I'm looking over Kim's shoulders. And then on Thursday it'll be more stuff that I'm leading. Right? Does that make sense? But if you have any questions about the layout or how to find stuff on Canvas, just let me know. I have had quite a few questions. There was another question that came up with a number of students this week, was about workshop. So during a normal semester when we're in person, we do have workshops too, which are kind of like SI sessions. But there are small groups of students that we do some more active learning stuff. And this is, you know, we hire lots of experienced older students to run these sessions, to help run these sessions and work with students and schedule them throughout the week. And so in the course schedule, they're part of the course, they're part of the course catalog and everything. So when we schedule a class in the computer system for the university, it has to have that component in it, right? It has to have this workshop component that has to be scheduled. But over the summer, when we were planning for the possibility of being remote again in the fall, we decided that, especially for this class, the best way to do the workshop type thing was with SIs directly the way we're doing it. So what that means is that you all have a workshop kind of hard scheduled, right, in your schedule, but you're actually not going to meet during that time. So for all of you who have that workshop session on your schedule, whether it's Wednesday morning or Thursday afternoon or Friday at lunchtime or whenever it is, that now is an open time. But it was actually very difficult to take that out, you know, of the course scheduling. So we just left it in. It's just one of those things that, you know, it was just easier to kind of take care of it ourselves. So Nguyen wants to see a textbook cover. Nguyen, this is the, let me, hold on a second. I think it's going to be easier if I, what if I don't want to do a virtual background anymore? Oh, none, there it is. Okay, that's fine. So it's just easier to see if I turn off the background. This is the 8th edition, right? I think, what am I sharing now? My iPad still? I don't even know anymore. Let me, I think I have what the new edition looks like. And the way I have to do it is look at the slides. So actually what I'm opening right now are the PDF note versions of the slides that I have posted under files. So the idea, I don't know why it's taking so long. Oh, let's do this one, stop. You know, the good thing about the internet is there's a lot of stuff you don't actually have to keep on your computer, but the bad news is that it's not actually on your computer. This one's smaller. While we're waiting for it, this is really a pain. Anyway, well, we'll wait for this to download, and you'll be able to see the cover of the 9th edition, because it's a little bit different, just so you know what it looks like. Like I said, another very long question, or very long answer to a very short question. So for these lecture handouts, if you've seen them, they're three slides, right, with some space to write. And this might be a good way for you to take notes during lecture or so on, because hopefully you've seen the way that we're presenting the lectures. We're doing it a little bit different way, but we all have the slides that the textbook publisher supplied with some note writing and our faces. So the way I do it, is I have my note-taking app, and then I also, this is probably not going to work very well. Because it has to load, right? Anyway, so I put them side by side. It's hard to get it working though. This is, and when I do this on video, of course I edit this out. So now you know what I'm doing. The first 5 minutes of my videos, I'm trying to get this going like this. There. So that's the way I do it, right? For the lectures, I'm going to write on one side. I have the slides on the other side. And sometimes I write on both, right? I think Dr. Starai just has the slides and then he writes all over the slides, right? And then we put other stuff in. And I try to throw some other stuff in there occasionally, both to break up the lecture and there might be something I think is interesting that might be an outside link, right? Does that make sense? Let's go back and see if this ever, none of these are downloaded. Anyway, this is still churning. Yeah, I don't know why that's taking so long. But anyway, if you, Ian, if you wanted to look on the files section in Canvas, you would get any one of those lecture handouts with the slides. The very first slide has a picture of the front of the book on it. So that's kind of, hopefully that's helpful. Okay. All right, so what I want to do now, just to end class, is I want to do breakout rooms, okay? And what I want you to do for the breakout rooms is I'm going to go. I'm in it after I start the rooms. I'm going to share my screen again, because what I want to do is I want to. I'm just trying to call up this question. I want you to talk about the question I'm going to give you, right, with each other, just for a few minutes to get to know each other. So what I want you to do is go around and introduce each other, and maybe you can say your major or where you're from or so on. And I might pop in. Let's see. Just to say hi. Okay, so I'm going to do that now. So you should get invitations to join the rooms. All right. Hi, did everybody get a chance to talk to each other a little bit? You can unmute. If you have any questions, as you pop back in, let me know. Some of you I know, like Nilani, right? I know some of you because you happen to be my advisee. I think I'm going to do a poll next time from where is everybody from, just so I have an idea. I think probably everybody's going to end up getting kicked out when it ends. A lot of the things that people use Zoom for that you used in class, actually you probably have more experience than I do in a lot of the features, because it's so different for me. So people should be coming back. I think it's been more than a minute. When I close the rooms out, it's supposed to kick everybody out. Okay, so now I know it's definitely been a minute. Oh, it would help to be on grid view. I'm sorry. So how's everybody doing? Hopefully, everybody got a chance to say a little bit to each other, right? And I think we'll do that somewhat regularly and so on. So, and we'll do some check-ins too. One thing that, you know, spring was very weird for all of us, right? And here at the university, it took a lot of it's much easier doing this online business from the get-go than kind of being forced into it. And a lot of students had to leave and even go home at the go overseas at the last minute and so on. So I'm going to do periodic check-ins too to make sure everybody's doing okay, make sure your living situation's okay, right? Make sure your brothers and sisters aren't jumping around behind you when you're trying to work. I see somebody's cat, which is fine. That's awesome. You know, because I have dogs. Like you can see Willie down there. Willie's almost 12. So that's okay, you know. So we'll do some stuff when we're in class, when we're in our sessions class and working. That for the most part we need to be working, but it's okay sometimes to take we'll take some breaks and do some other stuff too, because it's important to kind of feel like we know each other a little bit too. Does anybody have any questions before we finish up today? We go to the chat. Yeah, Chem Workshop. You will not be meeting for Chem Workshop. So for Chem 23, Chem Workshop is being fulfilled by the SI sessions, right? Does that make sense? And just to be clear, the other thing I talked about, and I definitely will put things together in modules, so it's just easier to find things for you. For you all to find things, that should help. But if you can't find anything, or or if you think there should be a file posted that's not, or so on. Just ask me. What I'm going to do is for each of these sessions, you know, I'll post the video as soon as I can. And for now, I'll put it on a page, but as soon as I have the modules together, I'll put it in the module for that chapter. Okay.
Hi, I actually had a quick question.
Okay.
So I was looking through the assignments and it says for the 27th, the practice exam is due for the first and the second chapter. But when I went in to look for the exam, I only saw the page that said the chapters 2 through 4 were on that page. So I wasn't sure if there was a page for chapter 1. And
There actually isn't. There actually isn't. Chapter one is in the book. It'd probably be better if we just said we're starting with chapter 2, because I think Dr. Zhao spends a few minutes on chapter 1, but chapter 1 is essentially a review of the scientific method. So there's not a lot of stuff to go over.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
and then I also had a quick question. So we do meet 2 days a week. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, you're good. Go ahead.
Okay, so we do meet 2 days a week. Do you prefer us to have like gone through the lectures before meeting with you, or do you have like a preference for that? Since you do have the slides, Palmer.
Yeah, so if you look at the schedule, it said, like for this week, it says for that first video lecture to have, I'm looking at it now to make sure it says what I think it does. To make sure that you have, I'm looking at the schedule. So it says Tuesday, August 25th, today, for the first video lecture, right? So I realized maybe, I'm guessing maybe 50% of you saw it. So, but that's okay. It's the first week. But that's the goal, right? Is on the before class on Tuesday, you'll have watched the video lecture. So you at least are familiar with the stuff. Now there might be some stuff in there that is confusing you or you're not quite sure about. And that's what the meetings are for, is to work out those problems. Does that make sense?
Yes.
For Chem 101, it says I have to activate the course. That's correct. I think activate means pay for it. I think that's what they mean. If you already paid for it, then what it means is you have to put the course code in. And the course code is on the syllabus, and it's also on Canvas, 7GT R4C. And if you enter that, then you'll be dropped into this class for Chem 101. Okay, I think you have some sort of grace period, like you can sign up for it and start using it right away before you pay for it. And if for some reason it time bombs out, let's say you have 10 days, right? You have 10 free days to use it, and you get to the 10th day and you forgot to pay for it, and you end up paying for it on the 14th day. Your information doesn't disappear, right? So if something happens and there's a time in between the free trial running out and you actually paying for it, you don't have to worry about your scores disappearing. That actually happened to us last year, and they had backups of everything. It wasn't by design, but they had an issue last year and everybody's scores disappeared. And they did have a backup. It just took a couple of days to get that going. So, so if something like that happens, you don't have to worry about your scores disappearing. Any other questions? I know you're going to have lots of questions. You know, sometimes your questions might seem kind of small or silly, and you know, you can always just ask me an email or whatever. That's fine. There's always lots of questions, and it may be, you know, sometimes it's going to be a question that might be better for your advisor not to answer, but to handle, in which case I'll tell you what I think, but I'll tell you that's something you'll have to talk about your advisor. It has to do with your classes or just something else going on. but I'm happy to initiate the conversation with you too. Okay. If there's no other questions, then I'll see you Thursday. And I hope you have a good week. And remember, lab starts next week, so you don't have to worry about that this week. Okay. Bye. It's good seeing
Thank you so
everybody
much.
for the first time.